So have you ever noticed that someone can say something genuinely kind to you and part of you immediately questions it? And not because they sounded fake and not because they're being manipulative, but because somewhere inside of you along the way, you stop fully trusting people that were sincere. So I was thinking about this recently because my godson is visiting from Germany, and I've obviously known him since he was born, but now he's 23 years old and finishing a degree in chemical engineering. He's brilliant and he's funny and thoughtful and grounded and observant. I mean, he's just this amazing young man. And we've been spending time together hiking and playing games and just enjoying being together because we haven't been together for, years. I live in the States now and he's still in Europe. So there were two moments that came to my attention while in the last couple of days. And they weren't dramatic, but they were really impactful. I guess because they were so small. So we were hiking in the Columbia Gorge, and I wanted to harvest stinging nettle. And I got my pocket knife, and I was cutting the stems, and he was a little farther away from me, and he looked over, and he said very calmly, "Be careful." And that was all he said. Just normal, nice. And I looked at him, and I remember as I was saying it feeling odd, and I said, when you say things like that, I wonder if you're saying it because you care about me or because you think I'm not smart enough to use a knife. And he laughed, but I could see he was genuinely confused by that statement. So later that evening, we were playing a strategy board game with our family, and I made a move that kind of shifted the direction a little, and he looked at me and said, "Wow, that was actually a really impressive move." And again, I caught myself wondering if he was being sarcastic. I mean, the game was difficult, right? And I'd already made some mistakes, but part of me questioned whether he genuinely meant it. So it's not about whether I was right that he was being sarcastic or not. I wasn't. But that's actually the point, because afterwards we talked about it, and he explained that from where he would, like, if we go back to the stinging nettles, where he was standing, right? I was on the trail. It looked like I was cutting toward myself with a knife. I was actually cutting to the side. And he was simply concerned. And in the game, he was genuinely impressed by the logic of my move, because his mind naturally tracks systems and patterns and strategy super fast. And he meant exactly what he said. Exactly. There was no hidden meaning, no social jab, or he wasn't mocking me or anything like that. So what struck me was not about him. It was actually about me. And I think I was both surprised and kind of saddened too, because I realized that somewhere along the way, I started distrusting kindness. And not consciously, and not I, went around intentionally distrusting people, but just this undertone of doubt. And I started thinking about, how does that happen? Because I don't remember being this way years ago. I lived overseas most of my life, and in Northern Europe, things are very straightforward and almost very literal, if you will. And I remember sincerity feeling very natural, because people were straightforward and there were less layers of irony and performance and hidden social positioning, I guess you'd say. And I don't want anyone to get defensive. I'm not talking about one country being better than another country at all. That's not even the point. I'm talking about something way beyond geography or where one is located. Because I think we're living in a time where sarcasm, even comedy, internationally, has become a form of social currency. It's how people get along and bond and maybe even signal intelligence or assume intelligence if people can be sarcastic. And it's also a way to protect yourself. And interestingly enough, while you're protecting yourself, sometimes sarcasm is also used as a form of affection. People tease each other constantly, or mocking each other, or they just, they kind of make jokes or harass, undercutting, and that's how they learn to bond, right? That's kind of how we are, I'm going to say. And then it gets dismissed. I'm just joking. We're just having fun. Don't be so sensitive. If you bring up an issue, or if you say, hey, that doesn't feel good, right? It's kind of just dismissed and minimized if you have an objection. So I think something actually really bigger is going on, or deeper, I'm going to say, because I think over time, all of those little bings, they add up. And with those little bits, it adds up to people actually distrusting sincerity. And I think we're missing the fact that humans, we actually learn not only through these huge experiences in life, but it's a constant stream. We learn from consistency. We learn from repetition. We learn through emotional environments. And all of those little micro interactions, those little tiny movements, hundreds a day or thousands a week or whatever it is, it adds up. And so if enough communication is based on ridicule or sarcasm, or there's criticism that's hidden, or socially you're playing one-upmanship, or having to put people down or humiliate people, right? That our nervous systems starts to calibrate to that, and then anticipating that kind of minimizing or ridicule wherever we go, even in places where it's not happening, because we just get used to protecting ourselves. And when we start protecting ourselves, then we start to close down. But then here's the interesting thing. Not only do we start closing down, but then we also stop trusting the kindness and also stop offering it. Because if we start closing down, it's not a one-way close down, right? If I'm protecting myself from something, I'm also not letting anything out, or not as much out. So if I start distrusting kindness or genuineness, right, then I'm also going to stop sharing as freely. Yeah, because being sincere starts to feel risky. Like I'm exposing myself, or I'm naive, right? My kids sometimes call me Winnie the Pooh because I have, this strength, and I'm confident and I feel really good in myself, and then I have this kind of naive part of myself that I'm fine with, but other people over the years have made fun of me for that. And I remember feeling embarrassed by it. So like me, people start to protect themselves or detach even. And they use that kind of sarcasm and irony or coolness to distance. And then they pretend not to care. And eventually we end up then in an entire culture where people are starving for really genuine and real connection, while at the very same time we're distrusting that kind of genuineness when it actually appears, like with my godson. And that's painful. It hurts. And I don't even think most people are realizing they're doing it. Like I didn't at all. And when people are sarcastic, I don't think that they're doing it from cruelty, like they're trying to be hurtful. I think that a lot of it comes from adapting, right? They just get used to being that way with other people. So people learn early that being open and sincere, you can be made fun of. I know I was. I know a lot of people made fun of me because I was kind of naive and said what I thought and said what I felt, and I didn't know how to do that kind of sparring with jabs emotionally. I just didn't. And today you've got the online aspect of things, right? Or in groups where the environments, it can feel risky to be vulnerable there. And when we are, that it can be used as a form of entertainment, especially in online forums, yeah? So people learn to layer. They keep themselves removed one layer at a time, or another layer of protection, right? Or hidden through their layers. And what's interesting is that many people now confuse actually cynicism with intelligence. Like if somebody's kind of cocky and, oh yeah, you're that kind of, that's seen as intelligence. Yeah, as though being skeptical automatically makes someone more perceptive. But some of the most intelligent people that I've ever met are also deeply sincere. Like my godson. He's super analytical. Oh my gosh. And highly educated. I can have conversations with him at 23 that I can't have with most PhDs. literally. And he's sharp and he's present and he's totally engaged in life. And incredibly straightforward in his kindness. He says what he means. And I realized during this visit that part of what moved me emotionally was not just being with him, which I loved, but it was realizing, oh my God, he actually says what he means and he actually means what it is that he says. Like, I can trust that. And that realization really hit me because I think many of us, I know I had, become accustomed to that kind of layered communication. And that if someone's that direct, it not only feels unusual, it also feels suspicious. And I caught myself in that. And I don't think this is a small thing. I actually think it's really impactful. And I don't know, for me, it's huge. Like, I think it affects our relationships, our families, our friendships, absolutely our workplaces and our communities. If we look on the whole, how common has it become to make fun of people? Like, we're just numb to it anymore. And if people come with generosity or kindness and sincere directness, it's distrust. Is like, yeah, he wants something, right? And I think that affects our ability to trust each other deeply. And honestly, I think it affects our ability to trust ourselves, because when our communication becomes so layered and so convoluted with sarcasm and performance, and it's indirect, and we've got, hidden meanings and all these things, then you can't really rest. You just are always on guard and always looking for where the next thing is that you need to deal with. You're scanning constantly. What did they mean? And was that genuine? And was that a jab? And are they making fun of me? And was that actually criticism or was that sincere? Like, it's just constant and it's exhausting. So this is where actually we can shift the dynamic, because a society does not become emotionally unsafe only through overt cruelty. It's this subtle, constant, underlying rhythm. And it can become emotionally unsafe through all that accumulated, the small dismissals of sincerity, because we don't really feel like we can trust anything anymore, right? All those little repeated fractures, and they build up, all that humiliation. And the moments where tenderness actually shows up, and then it's treated like it's weakness. And eventually people stop offering goodness because they don't believe it's going to be received safely. Like, why would you keep doing that if people just keep making fun of you? And that is a loss. It really is. And I think that's where my sadness came from, because I recognized, oh my gosh, I've given that up. Till I realized it, right? But it's a deep loss. And I'm not saying we should become humorless at all, right? I did an improv class recently, which was a hoot. I love humor. Teasing is fine. Oh my gosh. And I'm a great person to make fun of too, right? And I love being playful. That's not what I'm talking about. But I am talking about the difference between laughter that brings people together and is based on a sense of kindness and care. Like, I'm always losing my telephone. Oh my gosh. And so my kids make fun of me for always losing my telephone. Like, it's harmless. Yeah. And in our communication patterns can actually train people to trust us when we're consistent with them, but they can also train people to distrust kindness if we're always using our communication to tear people down, because then that's what they're going to come to expect, that, right? So using our communication, using our way of being with people as a way to share how we feel about them is really important. And distinguishing what can be hurtful and what's genuinely kind, that distinction is super important. So becoming more human again is really relearning how to say what we actually mean. Like, how to appreciate openly. Say, wow, I thank you for that. That feels good. Or to express gratitude directly. I noticed that you consistently show up for me. Or you didn't have to go out of your way, and I recognize that. Thank you for that. And how to acknowledge goodness without embarrassment. Like, just to recognize the value in sharing that kind of genuine appreciation And that's nothing to be embarrassed about, ever, even if people make fun of it. And so we can learn how to care for people without kind of packaging it in mockery or, sarcasm. Because curiously enough, the moment that we stop distrusting kindness, then we kind of soften and our nervous system can rest. And then we don't have to constantly scan for where another jab can come, for where somebody could possibly hurt us. And that's what people are really hungering for right now. Not to be perfect and not to reach their goals and objectives and not to be more clever or whatever is being demanded on the world stage. It's just to feel sincerely safe. That you can, just sincerity that feels safe and that you can believe it and you can lean into it. Beyond the noise is you, as you are. And that's good enough. And that deserves to be recognized and held kindly. And you also get to trust other people when they offer that to you. Like my godson. Something to think about. So if this conversation resonated with you, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Subscribe to the channel. You can like the video, share it with someone else. We have a growing community here. And we talk about communication and emotional intelligence, conflict, self-leadership, and what it means to stay human in a reactive world. And in the next video, I want to talk about something really connected to this, and that is, why do so many people confuse emotional protection with emotional strength? All right. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be well.